love this book, The Endless Practice by Mark Nepo. He also wrote 7,000 Ways to Listen. If you want to be more authentic and understand the beautiful poetry of what it is to be alive, like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. It helps to remember that the word authentic means bearing the mark of hands. Being authentic, being real and genuine, means touching and being touched, holding and being held. The living work of hands is where being and becoming meet, where inner and outer, like two hands, part the veil of circumstance to reveal oneness. Through the life of authenticity, we trip into the heart of things and experience the interconnectedness of things again and again. So you really get this sense of non-duality, what he's speaking about here. In a very real sense, we're always beginning, because beginning without judgment or conclusion is the way we drink from mystery. Beginning is the way we are reanimated. And so the interesting thing about what he's saying there is many of us would say, like, well, I am authentic. How could I be anything but me? And there, to a certain extent, there's always truth there, right? But it's, am I being me from a, I know me in that I know my hand, or I know me because I have thoughts about what my hand is? And am I who I think I am, or being who I actually am? And is my experience of the world as an authentic person, am I feeling that interconnectedness with all things, with other people? Am I feeling that connection? Because authenticity takes that vulnerability of showing up as we are. Oftentimes we're afraid of being hurt, so we don't. When we deny what comes through us, it defines us. When we honestly face what comes through us, then who we are grows. Meeting and receiving what we feel is being authentic. Meeting and receiving what we feel is being authentic. How often do we deny, neglect, avoid, ignore, distract what's real for us in the moment, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to feel that. That's uncomfortable. When we're authentic, we discover what we already know. And a lot of us are afraid of looking at ourselves fully because we're afraid of what we might find. We're afraid of what we might find. I was in social situations this past weekend and wondering how to be authentic in those situations. Can I be authentic if I don't want to be in the social situation I'm in? How can I view it more, as Alan Watts puts it in several of his books? Can I play the game? Have I zoomed out enough to realize that it all is a game? And then how do I want to play that? Because in these social situations that I was in, the thoughts that are creating the emotion of heaviness for me and stuckness were like, I don't want to be here. I don't like this. This is pointless. You know, all of these different thoughts that sometimes we're not even aware of that are generating my emotional experience in that moment. And then part of me shutting down and saying, well, I don't want to be authentic, right? It's like this little kid just gets angry and shuts down in us and stops us from really feeling good and being really true to ourselves in that moment, because that's actually possible for us. So Alan Watts here from the book on the taboo of knowing who you are. Something shaken up inside of you, read this one. And this is from his chapter on being a genuine fake. And he talks about the way society has been set up and how it puts us in a double bind with unrealistic expectations. So he says the social double bind game can be phrased in several ways. The first rule of this game is that it's not a game, right? It's not a game. This isn't funny. Go to work, do your job. Everyone must play. You must love us, everyone. You must go on living. Be yourself. I love this one. But play a consistent and acceptable role. Be who you are. Of course, I want you to be who you are, but make sure you're playing a consistent and acceptable role. Control yourself and be natural. Try to be sincere. Try to be sincere. So the two I love the most, control yourself and be natural. Don't you feel that in every social situation? Control yourself and be natural. Be yourself, but play a consistent and acceptable role, because I want to be able to show up and expect you to be the same person that you were last time. And if you're not, well, then what the heck are you doing? Right? And so there's this interesting pressure to like be who you are, but equally not at the same time, because that's really not what society wants. And that's why there's this part of us that's like screaming out to be expressed, if you can really tune into that within yourself, that's been shut down not just by society but by you, because you've learned that now, which is why I wrote the book The Power of Permission. Give yourself the freedom to be authentically you, because it takes giving ourselves permission consciously to go beyond what we've learned to be wrong now. So I'll give an example. If I've learned, or the example I kind of give in my book, this little boy, Timmy, like asked for help to get up on the monkey bars one day. Simple example, but small example like that permeates all other areas of our life. He asked for help to get up on the monkey bars one day. And he gets made fun of. Like, you shouldn't need help. Haha, you can't get up on the monkey bars and whatnot. And so Timmy learns that asking for help is bad. And so as an adult now, he never asks for help, even though he needs it. But now he needs to give himself permission to ask for help. Why? Because it's no longer those schoolyard bullies that are keeping him small anymore. It's only him hanging on to the belief that asking for help is bad. And so you can see how all these social situations that we've been through keep us hostage and act as limitations for us if we don't, one, recognize what they are and how they're currently influencing our behavior, and then two, consciously allow ourselves to go beyond them. And that's what permission is. That's why I wrote the book. And there's over 54 that I've written, permissions, ways that you only and only you can set yourself free, but it takes responsibility to do so. Responsibility to look within and recognize, where have I been holding myself hostage and limiting myself from showing up fully and completely as I am. Permission to disappoint others has been huge for me. I have to allow that to be okay. Not everyone is going to like the way I'm being, what I'm saying, and we desperately want to be liked by all people in all times. And the interesting part about that is when we bring up the idea of what a tribe is, the more you are who you are, the more people will not like you. Naturally, your way of being will just not resonate with a mass amount of people. Why? Because so few people are actually themselves. Gary Vaynerchuk's a really great example of someone who I use him because he can be perceived as blunt and abrasive. And the very thing that people love about him, the 1,000 people, the tribe, who love him for his being blunt and abrasive and telling it how it is the same reason that 10 million people hate him. The tribes is those 1,000 people will love you so much, fully and completely, for you being who you are, that the 10 million won't matter. And so we put so much energy and effort into being who we're not, rather than sinking into the effortlessness of who we really are. And so there's this story that goes really well with this. Just thinking, do I want to tell it all the way through? Yes. There's a hunter, or one day in the Sahara, and he kills a lion. And another gentleman with a pack of donkeys is walking by and sees it from afar. And after they're done kind of scavenging the meat from the lion, the man with the donkeys walks up to the lion and notices that that lion that they killed was pregnant and there's a baby cub there. So he takes it and raises it as his own. And he walks from village to village with his donkeys, transporting different things. So eventually the lion grows up one day and it's big enough to have some of the provisions loaded on its back as well. So one day, that man and his donkeys and the lion are traveling from place to place, and a lion comes upon them and goes, "Ooh, donkeys, yes, some food." And then he notices a lion amongst them and he goes, "What's going on here?" So he runs up to the lion and says, and the lion, who believes he's a donkey, says, "Please, Mr. Lion, don't eat me, don't eat me." And the lion says, "What are you talking about? You're a lion." And he says, "No, sir, I'm a donkey. Please don't eat me." He says, "Come here." And he brings him to a watering hole and says, "Look, are our reflections not the same?" And he sees that he's the same. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're right." And then he says, "Roar." And then the lion roars. The moral to this story is, how long did it take the lion who believed he was a donkey to roar? No time. He was always a lion. All he had to do was stop practicing being a donkey. And that's what we see ourselves doing a lot of, is practicing being donkeys. And being a lion feels inauthentic to us, but that's the real us. That's where all the power, the responsibility, the authenticity, the standing out quality, the humility, the confidence, the worthiness, the vulnerability is in being who you are, but it feels fake in this moment because we're so identified with being a donkey. So identified. I want to read you something from Inside Out Revolution by Michael Neal. Because we think our happiness comes from getting what we want, we pursue our goals at the cost of our relationships, our health, our spiritual well-being. When we get what we want and we're still not happy, we assume the problem is that we're still not doing enough. So we push even harder and end up even further away from the experience of happiness that we want. And so we're programmed to be busy, to keep doing, as this points to. And if I'm not getting what I want or feeling the happiness that I want, feeling true to myself, then I must not be trying hard enough. And so oftentimes what we do is we beat ourselves up in order to get more of what we want, which again only leads us further from the place. But remember, happiness and abundance are here naturally. It's limitation that we create. We don't need to create happiness. We don't need to create abundance. Innate well-being is innate to us. So what are the layers that we've put on, or the masks, the inauthenticity of believing ourselves to be true, right? That's why I entitled this Being a Genuine Fake. Because I genuinely believe I'm being true to myself. But if that was really the case, then the number one regret that people have before they die would not be, I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not a lie that others expect of me. So what are the expectations that I'm living into? And that brings me back to those social situations that I was being in this past weekend and thinking, what part of me am I changing? Hi, Chantel. What part of me am I changing in order to make it acceptable for me to be here? What part of me is trying to show up in a way that pleases others or makes them comfortable? We're so afraid of making other people uncomfortable with the way that we are. That's incredible. And so in a group of, let's say, 10 people, almost all of us, almost always, are changing who we are for everyone else there. And so none of us are really showing up completely authentically. So let me tie this into the next part here, because this is just brilliant. It's kind of like a mathematical equation for the conflict that I have described Alan Watts pointing out as well, which is struggle plus stress plus sacrifice equals success. That's what we believe. That if I struggle enough, that if I stress enough, if I beat myself up enough, if I sacrifice my health and my relationships, my very well-being to get what I want, then that equals success. And success is what I want. Why? Because success equals happiness. So I'm trying to get success because success ultimately equals happiness, because underneath every desire is a desire for freedom. So then he makes that a little smaller. So unhappiness, which is the struggle, the stress, and the sacrifice, unhappiness equals success. And remember, success equals happiness. So ultimately, that leaves us with the oxymoronic formula of unhappiness equals happiness. And I continue to perpetuate the cycle of trying to get somewhere, of trying to be someone who I'm not currently now in order to be happy. And people do this, and we will do this, and maybe we are doing this in this very moment their entire lives, never stopping to realize that I can be who I am fully right now. And why does that take courage? Why does being who I am take so much courage? Because it takes stopping practicing being a donkey. Because it takes acting on what I feel instead of what I think. So when what I feel says, quit your job, that doesn't make any sense. And then I continue to perpetuate the cycle of, well, maybe I can make this work, right? Maybe if I do this and that and this and that and this and that, then I can be in a more comfortable place that will allow me to do that. Maybe one day I'll be truly who I am and truly go after what I want. And we can say maybe one day for the rest of our life. Or we can take the leap. So there's this interesting thing. That's what I love about this title, being a genuine fake. We genuinely believe that who we are being is true to us. And if we didn't, we wouldn't have that regret later in life. That again says, I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not a lie that others expected of me. So it takes looking. Who am I being? Who am I being, anyways? How am I limiting myself? And it was so painful for me this weekend to realize that I was limiting myself and not showing up as I really knew I could, as I really knew I wanted to be, for those other people who wanted that for me too. And to still hold yourself hostage and know it. Right? So step one there is, well, don't beat myself up about it. So we can create a whole bunch of resistance that just spirals us downward there. Like, Brian, why are you doing this? Instead of just being like, wow, I guess this is the way it is. And I'm kind of like stuck right now. It's kind of shitty. The best thing I can do is call it out in the moment. So I guess this is the way it is right now. And then what can I learn from this? What I learned was looking back from the perspective of 80-year-old me always helps me. Who would I wish I had been? What would I wish I would have done? Which is part of why I'm shooting this video right now. If I died tomorrow, or in the next moment, or in the next month, or whenever that is, I would have wished I would have shared these things. Just as much for me as for other people. Just like, why does a bird sing, right? It sings not for others, just because that's what it loves doing. So the very thing that we're afraid of is being ourselves, which is singing your song just because you love singing it. It doesn't matter if other people like it. It doesn't matter if other people will buy it. It doesn't matter if other people will think it's worthy. It doesn't matter if they even pay attention. If no one showed up on this entire video, I don't care. I love that you're here, right? And also, I don't care because this is me singing. So, what is the song that you want to sing that has been desperately trying to get out of you and you keep shutting it down? For whatever reason, it doesn't even matter what the reason is. Right? Then we go like, yeah, why is that? And we use that as a way of creatively avoiding being who we are again. What's the song? What's it going to take for you to just start doing it? Because if you die tomorrow, it's going to be yourself that you're going to have to face, not other people. What would I wish I would have done? So that when I am 80, I'll look back on my life and be like, wow, every single action I took was a reflection of how I wanted to be in the world. I was in alignment with what was true to me in the moment. And I wasn't trying to meet any kind of supposed to, should, expectation, social obligation, trying to please anyone. It's like a clean life, isn't it? There's a sense of purity there. Purity is truth. Truth is freedom. I speak what's true to me. Even if people don't like it, because the intention behind what I say isn't to hurt. It's to sing for those who happen to like hearing me sing. And I really hope that those people find me. Right? And the ones who don't, they don't have to listen. Isn't that amazing? We can turn this on right now and broadcast ourselves to the world if they want to listen. And we say we don't have personal power. We have so much power, we're just not using it. And it doesn't have to be broadcasting to the world. It can be big or small. We don't need to judge it. We're not here to be judged. So are you being a genuine fake? We all are in some ways. Otherwise, our lives would be very different. We'd already have all that we want. And again, not in terms of material possessions necessarily. We'd just be living that life that is naturally happy, naturally peaceful, naturally abundant, without stress of trying to figure it out, of trying to get somewhere, of trying to create the happiness, peace, joy, and fulfillment that is natural to me being here. So it's nice to be reminded of this innate well-being in us, because we just forget. We forget because we're caught up in that cycle. And we forget to zoom out and see the environment that has created us. And if I really saw that, because it's one thing to see it, it's one thing to see it. If I really saw that, then I'd be, acceptance isn't a thing that I have to try to do. Acceptance is something that happens as a result or an outcome of seeing things truly as they are. That's why I love this book. Seeing is forgetting the name of the thing one sees. And so if you're actually able to see not just things outside of you, but things inside of you for exactly what they are, they're accepted. They tend to evaporate. They're incorporated or integrated into our experience naturally. This is one of our tasks in being authentic, is to have a desire to want to see things as they are. To have a willingness to see what we might not like. To have a willingness to be with what we might not like. Because what's the part of me that doesn't like it anyways? Who's the one that's not liking? Who's the one that's making it so terrible? It's really fascinating how many of us there are in there that come from that one experience of me. Who's the I that's doing the talking? Who's the I that's doing the judging? Who's the I that's being the victim? Who's the I that's giving compassion to the victim? Does any of that even really matter? Just being with it all and realizing that being myself, feeling worthy, has no prerequisites. Again, if we hear that and we kind of get that, oh yeah, I don't have to do anything to feel worthy. I was talking to a client recently, and this will be my last share. We have an idea of what giving looks like, of what being in service looks like. And that idea can keep us from feeling like we're worthy, because what we really want in terms of feeling meaning and fulfillment in life is to serve. I really hope I serve well. And I hope that I serve well by being who I am, right? I don't want to have to change who I am to serve. I want to be fully me in service of others. That's what we all basically fundamentally want. And so if my idea of service is that I have to do some specific act of selflessness that goes beyond me, yeah, that feels good. But what if I can let that idea, because that's all it is, of what service needs to be for me, what if I can realize and really feel into worthiness has no prerequisites, that my literally breathing and my beating heart is my way of being of service to others. That's what we're talking about when we say not having to do anything. That literally your existence, and I relate this to nature, right? In the same way that our ecological system of life feeds into itself, that each tree needs to be here, each droplet of water needs to be here. It's playing its part just by being here. Tangled up sometimes because we have free will and this thing called self-awareness. And so I have the blessing and the curse of deciding if I want to be who I am or not. That would be like a tree being like, do I really want to be a tree or not? It's like, I am a tree, but like, what if I want to be a bush? And it spends its life like hating on itself for not being different than it is. And it's just like, dude, just play your part, right? But they don't have to make that decision, or they don't get to make that decision. And so there's really only one choice as a being with free will, is to choose not to choose anymore. I'm not going to choose because life has a path for me. And if I choose to accept that, I don't have to choose anything else. It's choiceless choice. But that takes trust because we're not used to letting things just happen. And so our idea of service can really shape our happiness. How many ideas do we have? Just like the idea of who I want to be. Maybe you're not that, and maybe you'll never will be. Oh well. Or I hate that I'm not that. Why can't I be that? I need to do something, get a certificate, get some more education so I can finally feel the worthiness that has always been there. It's like being a leaf and forgetting that you're a part of the tree. Oh, I'm connected to the whole source of things. And if I really felt that instead of got that from an intellectual standpoint, I'd be at peace already. And so there's another way that we pretend that we're a genuine fake, right? It's like, yeah, I know that I'm connected to the tree, but I'm busy being a leaf right now, right? So there's this interesting piece where we're connected to everything and also able to be an individual as a part of the whole at the same time. That's pretty cool. So I'd love to hear if anyone has any questions on this or any feedback and what you see in other people or yourself. Leave some comments below. I'd love to hear from you and start a conversation on this. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.